When I was young, my days were full of joy and laughter. I played with my friends, ran in the fields, and dreamed of many things. Life was simple and easy. I did not know about hard problems or big worries. I thought I would always be a child, safe and happy. One summer day, everything changed. It was a warm and bright morning. The sun was shining, and birds were singing. I woke up early, ready to play outside. I put on my favorite shirt and shoes. I felt excited because my best friend was coming to my house to play. My mother called me to eat breakfast. The smell of fresh bread and eggs made my mouth water. We talked and laughed at the table. My father was there too, but he looked tired. I did not understand why. He did not smile like he usually did. I thought maybe he was just sleepy. After breakfast, my friend arrived. We ran to the garden and played games. We laughed so much that I forgot about everything else. The day felt perfect. Then, suddenly, my mother told me to come inside. Her face was serious. She held my hand tightly and said, "We need to talk." I felt a little scared. Her eyes looked worried. I asked, "What is wrong, Mama?" She looked at my father, and he nodded. They told me that something bad had happened. My grandfather, the man I loved very much, was very sick. He was in the hospital. The doctor said he might not get better. I did not understand fully. I only knew that something important was happening. My father tried to explain, but his voice was shaking. My mother hugged me and said, "We will go see him soon." That day, I learned that life could be hard. Not everything is fun and easy. Sometimes, people we love get hurt or leave us. I felt my heart become heavy. I wanted to cry, but I did not know how. I just sat quietly, holding my mother's hand. As the sun went down, I looked out of the window. The sky was red and orange. I wished I could go back to the happy morning, to the time before the bad news. That night, I could not sleep. I thought about my grandfather's smile, his stories, and the times we played together. I felt a new feeling inside me, a feeling that I was not a child anymore. I was starting to understand that life can change in one day. This was the day my childhood began to end. The next morning, I woke up feeling strange. I wanted to be happy and play, but my heart was heavy. My parents were busy getting ready to visit my grandfather at the hospital. I watched them quietly. They did not talk much, but I could see they were worried too. We got into the car and drove to the hospital. The city looked the same, with busy streets and tall buildings, but everything felt different to me. I held my mother's hand tightly. I wanted to be brave, but I was scared inside. When we arrived at the hospital, the air smelled cold and strange. The walls were white and clean, and many people walked in and out. We found my grandfather's room. He was lying in bed, with tubes and machines around him. He looked very weak. At first, he did not open his eyes. I wanted to call his name, but my voice was small and quiet. Then, slowly, he moved his head and looked at me. His eyes were tired but full of love. I smiled and held his hand. It felt cold and soft. My grandfather tried to talk, but only small sounds came out. I could see he was fighting to stay strong. My father stood near him and said, "We are here, Grandpa. We love you." My mother wiped her tears quietly. I sat by the bed holding my grandfather's hand for a long time. I wanted to tell him how much I loved him, how I missed him, but the words did not come. I just looked at him and prayed he would get better. After some time, the doctor came in. He spoke softly to my parents. I could tell the news was not good. My father's face became sad, and my mother held my hand tighter. We stayed at the hospital until the sun began to set. My grandfather closed his eyes and slept. I did not want to leave, but my parents said we must go home and rest. On the way back, the car was quiet. No one spoke. I looked outside at the darkening sky and thought about what had happened. I felt a deep sadness I had never known before. It was a new feeling that made my chest hurt. When we got home, I went to my room. I sat on my bed and held my favorite toy, but the toy did not make me happy anymore. I missed my grandfather so much. The house felt empty without his laughter. That night, I cried for the first time since the news. I cried because I was scared, sad, and confused. I cried because I knew that things would never be the same again. Before I slept, I promised myself to be strong. I wanted to remember all the good times with my grandfather and keep his love in my heart. But I also knew that this was a turning point, the day when my childhood started to fade away, the day when I started to understand that life can be hard, and sometimes we lose the people we love. A few days passed after our visit to the hospital. Every day felt slow and heavy. I did not feel like playing anymore. My toys stayed on the floor, untouched. I spent most of my time sitting quietly, thinking about my grandfather. My parents tried to act normal, but I could see the sadness in their eyes. They whispered to each other at night, thinking I was asleep. Sometimes, I heard my mother crying softly. I wanted to comfort her, but I did not know what to say. One evening, my father received a phone call. His face changed as he listened. He did not say much, only nodded and said, "We will come soon." When he hung up the phone, the room felt very quiet. My mother looked at him and asked, "Is it time?" He nodded slowly. I did not understand at first. Then my mother turned to me and hugged me tightly. She said, "Your grandfather is gone." Her voice was shaking. I felt frozen. My mind went blank. I waited for her to say something else, something hopeful, but she did not. My grandfather was gone forever. Tears filled my eyes, but I could not cry yet. I felt empty inside, like something important had been taken away from me. I went to my room and sat on my bed, staring at the wall. My favorite toy was beside me, but I did not touch it. That night, I remembered my grandfather's stories. I remembered how he used to hold my hand when we walked, how he laughed loudly, and how safe I felt with him. I realized I would never hear his voice again. The next day, many family members came to our house. Everyone wore dark clothes. The house was full of people, but it felt silent. Some people cried, some prayed, and some hugged me gently. I saw my parents cry openly for the first time. My father tried to stay strong, but his eyes were red. My mother looked tired and broken. Seeing them like that hurt me deeply. At the funeral, I stood quietly beside my parents. I watched as people said goodbye to my grandfather. I did not fully understand death before, but now I knew it was real. It meant someone you love will never come back. As we walked away, I felt a heavy weight in my heart. I was no longer the same child. Something inside me had changed. I felt older, even though I was still young. That day, I learned what loss meant. I learned that life does not always protect us from pain. Childhood is a time of happiness, but it cannot last forever. And on that day, I knew my childhood was slowly slipping away. After the funeral, life did not go back to normal. The house felt quieter than before. My grandfather's chair was empty. His voice was gone. Every corner of the house reminded me of him. Days turned into weeks. I went back to school, but I was not the same. I sat in class and stared at the board without listening. My friends laughed and played, but I did not feel like joining them. I felt different, like I did not belong anymore. My teacher noticed I was quiet. One day, she asked me if I was okay. I wanted to say yes, but the words felt heavy. I only nodded and looked down. Talking about my feelings was hard. At home, my parents were still sad. My mother tried to smile, but it did not reach her eyes. My father worked more and talked less. I realized that they were hurting too. I began to understand that adults feel pain just like children do. One evening, I found an old photo album. I opened it slowly. Inside were pictures of my grandfather and me. We were smiling, laughing, and holding hands. Tears filled my eyes, but this time, I did not stop them. For the first time, I allowed myself to cry freely. I cried for everything I lost. I cried for the moments we would never have. But after crying, I felt a little lighter. That night, I sat with my parents. I told them I missed Grandpa. My mother hugged me and cried with me. My father placed his hand on my shoulder and said, "It's okay to feel sad. We miss him too." Those words made me feel less alone. Slowly, I began to change. I started helping more at home. I tried to be strong for my parents. I listened more and spoke less. I learned to care about others' feelings. I noticed that I was growing up faster than my friends. While they worried about games and toys, I thought about life and loss. I understood that happiness can disappear, and we must treasure every moment. One afternoon, I sat outside and watched the sky. The clouds moved slowly. I remembered how my grandfather used to tell me that life is like the sky, sometimes bright, sometimes dark. I smiled softly, thinking of him. That was when I realized something important. Childhood is not only about age. It is about innocence. And mine was slowly fading. I was becoming someone new, stronger, quieter, and more aware of the world. The child I used to be was still inside me, but no longer the same. Time continued to move forward, even though part of me wished it would stop. Months passed, and the pain became softer, but it never fully disappeared. I learned how to live with it. I began to smile again. I played with my friends sometimes. I laughed, but it was different now. I understood that happiness can be fragile. It can break, but it can also return. At school, I started to focus again. I listened more and spoke wisely. My teacher once said, "You have grown a lot." I did not know if she meant my height or my heart. At home, I helped my parents more. I tried to make them proud. I saw how strong they were, even in sadness. From them, I learned that love does not end when someone is gone. It stays in memories, in actions, and in the way we care for others. One evening, I sat alone and thought about my grandfather. Instead of feeling only sadness, I felt gratitude. I was thankful for the time we had together. I was thankful for his lessons, his love, and his kindness. I realized that he helped shape the person I was becoming. I understood that childhood ends not in one moment, but in many small moments. Moments when we feel loss, pain, and responsibility. Moments when we learn that the world is not always kind. But I also learned that growing up brings strength. It teaches us how to stand again after falling. It teaches us how to love deeper and care more. I was no longer just a child who played without worry. I was someone who understood life a little better. One quiet night, I looked at the stars. I remembered how my grandfather used to point at the sky and tell me stories. I whispered, "Thank you." In that moment, I felt peace. The day my childhood ended was also the day my journey began. A journey of learning, healing, and growing. I will always miss my childhood. I will always miss my grandfather, but I will carry their love with me forever. And even though childhood ended, hope did not. It lives on in memories, in love, and in the strength we find within ourselves.